Welcome back to the Perpetual Wealth Podcast, a show for clients of Paradigm Life. This season, we're empowering you to take control of your financial future using the core principles of the Perpetual Wealth Strategy. Now, before we dive in, a quick but essential disclaimer. While this podcast is primarily for our valued clients at Paradigm Life, it's open to anyone interested in enhancing their financial knowledge. However, please remember that our information should not be taken as a direct tax, legal, or financial advice. We strongly recommend consulting with a wealth strategist at Paradigm Life or your financial team before making any decisions based on our discussions. Today, we continue our journey into cash flow, protection, and wealth building, the foundational principles of the Perpetual Wealth Strategy. Let's dive in and explore how to optimize your wealth and achieve financial independence. Your journey continues now. So when I was younger, a wee little lad, I was given a subscription to this magazine called Boy's Life. And invariably, I would go right to the classified section of Boy's Life every time I got the magazine. And in the classified section, you had these novelties. You had this Rambo knife that has a compass on the end, and you unscrew, and there's like matches inside. There's like a screwdriver. There's probably like one of those survival blankets in there. And then there's like a go-kart kit. There's like there's a kit to make a pedaled bicycle. But there was something I always wanted. And it was Sea People.
See
So
people.
on there you had this, kind of a makeshift like sketch of a tank, a water tank,
Uh-huh,
and
uh-huh.
these sea people in there. And I think they ended up being brine shrimp, right? But they were selling them as sea people. So that was my first, I would say, major purchase disappointment. Because obviously the $2 that I'd make from, cutting the lawn and doing my chores per week, I had to save up, I think, a couple months and bought the sea people only to get the sea people, and they weren't seeing people, and it's pretty disappointing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You see how traumatized my childhood was?
Oh, yeah, that it sounds horrific, expecting sea people and you get nothing but brain shrimp.
All right, so we're we're gonna we're gonna talk about cash flow today, and I have a wonderful person joining me, Jenny Steed. Jenny, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good,
Yeah,
Matt.
we're gonna talk. We're gonna lighten it up a little bit. We're gonna kind of give some stories that have formed, I would say, part of our perspective when it comes to financial strategy, asset management, cash flow management. But I find that story is intriguing to me because I don't know, for whatever reason, I just remember it. Like I remember it in a lot of detail. And I ended up getting the Rambo knife too. It wasn't called the Rambo knife, but it was like this survival knife that, the blade would come off and it wasn't sharp. And it's just one of those like it's fascinating to me to see just how much crap there is to buy, but how intrigued we get, right, by the novelty of it all, like Sea People or Rambo knives, right? But now you have, Amazon that has pretty much anything under the sun that you can buy. But I think the world, you think about modern society, and it's essentially positioned to take our money, all of it. Like, and there's an endless like list of things to buy, right?
And
And
with little effort.
hardly any effort these days.
Yeah.
'Cause it's one click. Now you have social media and e-commerce. Anyway, we're gonna get into it because I think even though this sounds trivial, I think there's merit to it, right? Because when you start to become aware of the world designed to uh, exchange with you, okay, obviously we're gonna exchange our stuff. We're gonna buy. It's part of like being fulfilled, part of partaking in modern society. At the same time, you can overdo it, And
Always, always can overdo it.
so I remember, one of the first jobs I had in school was a credit repair company. It was a call center, and I had been inspired by Rich Dad Poor Dad, and you know, uh, really figured out that sales, like learning how to sell, learning how to communicate, was important. But it terrified me. Before this, I lasted 2 weeks at trying to set appointments for vinyl siding, and didn't quite make it. But I was so committed to, because I was in college at this time. I was in high school, but in college, I was so committed to learning how to sell and having conversations with people. So I had a good time, like working with this company that helped people avoid bankruptcy and get out of debt. But I got to see just like how crazy the circumstances were that people get themselves into, and I don't think they had that is their intention, obviously. Okay, but they kind of succumb, right, to the irresistible pull of some of these advertisements
It's always at you every minute
all the time.
of every single day, even so much as Alexa. The other day, you were talking about this item. This item is available for purchase. Would you like to add that to your cart now? I was like,
But even it does that without even Alexa saying it. Like, if you ever had those experiences where, like, you're talking about Disneyland, or you're talking about Hawaii, or you're talking about, some book, and it just shows up in an advertisement on social media. Crazy.
and shows up everywhere
Yeah.
over and over and over again. That repetition sets it in your mind. And then pretty soon you have to have it.
So creepy internet spying experiences. And probably you guys can resonate with that. Impulsive buying, you could probably resonate with that. We found so many different studies. One of the studies by Credit Donkey, says that the majority of people, almost 90%, admit to buying things they don't need or didn't plan for. And that was like in 2017. That was that when Credit Donkey. I don't know if a Credit Donkey is around anymore, but
I would imagine that that statistic is probably way more robust now with everything that's gone on in the last couple of years, where people are seeking fulfillment
yeah,
and falsely believe that those items are going to be that fulfillment,
yeah.
even if it's just a moment.
Well, it's interesting. It's like I don't know if there's a rational process, right? I
Absolutely
think
not.
I think the how the human body is designed, our DNA is designed. It's like we want to be consuming things. I don't know where it comes from. I think food you want to consume, obviously, because you want to stay alive. But we have impulse to just consume everything else too. Right? I think our bodies are really old, right? And I think part of it is still saying like, hey, here's something to consume. If you don't consume, then you're going to die.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of the chemicals that produce the effects that compel us to behave in a certain way are still going on, right? And I think
Mhm.
people succumb to it, right? It's like the credit card debt that exists right now. Overspending, I think, is rampant. So as far as like I would say a healthy, holistic financial life,
Yeah.
right? Having a strategy with the idea that you can't really change your DNA. I mean, I guess maybe in some, future with what science is working on, maybe, but right now it's like you can't. So you essentially try to resist it and budget and be cheap, right? Which I know some financial celebrities advocate that, and I think there's merit to it. Don't get me wrong. At the same time, I think you could essentially use that pull to your advantage with a good strategic approach.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, something even as simple as before a purchase, asking yourself a question: does this add value to my life? And if so, in what way? If you can't answer those questions, I mean, it's super simple, super quick. Add it to your cart, let it marinate. If you forget about it, well, it clearly isn't going to add value, which most of us would forget about it. And then if you do come back to it, in what way is this item going to add value to my life? But that's just a super simple way to check in with those items that show up every day that are not even maybe even our own recommendations. Simple story. My I bought a pair of drapes for my office, really pretty drapes. And a couple weeks later, my mom shows up and she goes, "Oh, wow, honey, those are pretty drapes. I bought those same drapes." Well, it turns out those showed up in her suggestion list because she's in my phone and it shows up on her suggestions, and it just shows that power of that emotional resonation of those items with your people.
Well, however these marketers do it, they're doing it. And I think e-commerce, right, just one of those fields that there's tons of opportunity as like an entrepreneur, right? Especially like Etsy, right? Where if you have some creativity, you can make signs and jewelry and t-shirts. I think it's incredible. At the same time, you as a consumer, okay, you have to be aware that the world is trying to get your money, and that a system, whether it's a philosophy that you adopt, making rules for yourself, like, is this something that's actually going to work? So one thing that I realize is with my two daughters. So we have there's a cool app, and there's a lot of other, like Gravy Stack is a new app for kids. You have Greenlight, which is the one that I use with my kids. And so they have to do chores, and they don't do chores, they don't get any money, right? And it gamifies it because the money's there, and they get to see that it's there, and it reminds them like, hey, the money's there, but you got to do your chores to get the money. And so it's really cool. So it's auto transfer, really convenient. They have their own little debit card. And what I came to find out is every week, right? All the money's gone,
All the money's
all of
gone.
it. Like you get this amount of money, all of it's gone. Then next week, all of it's gone. When it started to, I was like, where's this stuff going? Then these things started to appear in the mail. And they had like, China, it's from China, right? Or Taiwan. It had like Chinese lettering on there. And just like crystals and jewelry and these things that just kind of piled up in my kids' room. So I've noticed like this is, I would say, a tendency of just human beings. It's young people, it's old people, right? And I don't want to prevent them from experiencing that. But what was
Sure.
cool with Greenlight, right, is that they have a mechanism where here's the amount that they're going to get every week if they do their chores, but you can carve out a certain percentage that goes into a savings account.
Ah,
And so it ended up, so that's what we did. And the savings just started to pile up and pile up and pile up. And then guess what happened? Then I get these requests from my kids like, Dad, can I transfer savings to spending?
of course, of course.
And I'm like, no. This is what was cool is they're like, well, it's just sitting there. It's not doing anything. Then what you can do with Greenlight, which is cool, is you can add an interest rate, your own interest rate. So I explain to them how, interest works and interest compounds. So now there's like, okay, if I buy this, I don't get that gain. I don't get interest on that. Okay. If I buy this, like it's gonna, pile up in my room. So this like psychological thing happened. So this was several years ago, and I feel that all of us really succumbed to COVID, where it was like nothing. You're working, but there's nothing else extracurricular, and so I imagine a lot of the money that people were saving started to get allocated to their Amazon budget, and piles of boxes started to appear on their doorstep
Yeah.
magically.
Yep.
But here's the deal. It's like I think I hope you guys can resonate with this. The idea is strategy. When you have strategy that you control, you influence, you set up, it helps curb human behavior. Right. So instead of resisting it, like you want to curb it. So curbing it, is very similar to what I just explained with Greenlight, right? Which is having a mechanism which you can control where your cash flow goes. And we've talked about it on previous episodes, but we have an app. This is a company we've partnered with and aligned with. They're actually from our industry. We've done joint events together, and they just came across. They've been using their specific financial firm and advisory to do this manually for years, but they created this kind of cash flow app where it helps redirect your cash flow. So pretty much all of the money you make goes into this one account, this aggregated account, and then from there, it essentially has a auto transfer to a spending account.
Yeah.
And guess what? The idea is like, here's all the spending, spend it all, spend 100%. Right. So, what it does is it helps you really, I would say, leverage and use the momentum of this, I would say, irresistible pull to spend. right? But it uses it, right, to foster good behavior because instead of saving last, you're saving first. And
First.
so they, there's new field of economics, behavioral economics. Richard Thaler is the behavioral economist who won the psychologist who won the Nobel Prize in economics. But there's another couple of professors that are at the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA, and they partnered with this app, and so they're essentially using what they understand about human behavior and finance to ensure that people have a good experience with their cash flow. And it's magical. A lot of the stories are coming up where people had no savings and now they have all of this savings, and it's a simple shift, right? Because that's how I look at it. I've had clients in the past, and current clients, right, who make so much money and it's just in this account and this account, it's all over the place, and they end up spending very little. They don't It's kind of like you have the overspenders,
Yep,
then you have like the underspenders. I mean, sometimes you have like the in between, but you have a lot of like overspending and underspending on the tails of that bell curve.
that's right.
And I remember this, client has had assets and money everywhere, and he just didn't spend any of it until I showed him that he had enough money for his life and the life of his kids and life of his grandkids. Right? It was that awakening that got him to realize, like, wow, like, I need to start spending more money.
Yeah, that was their protection mechanism to put it in different places so it wasn't immediately visible. And then because it
Exactly.
wasn't immediately visible, then the lack mentality started to set in and that spiraled from there.
And there's
So,
accounts everywhere.
yeah,
Accounts like, you know, on this, and they were usually all organized in a spreadsheet, right? And super confusing to the person that was managing it. But this is the reason why we spent the last couple of years really figuring out how to provide an even better experience for Paradigm Life clients. That's why we built the Paradigm Life client portal. On the portal, again, this is a free for all Paradigm Life clients, but you have a one page dashboard, right, of your entire financial life on one page, right? Most people have, uh, you know, a spreadsheet, or they're using a tool that was built specifically for like just the typical financial services world, right?
yep,
Where it has, okay, you can put a bank account in there, you can put a mutual fund in there, but insurance cash value, there's no place for it.
yeah.
An annuity, no place for it. Maybe a rental property, no place for it. So we basically built this uh, dashboard called WealthView 360, and you could put any asset, cryptocurrency, precious metals, alternative investments, rental real estate. You can evaluate all of it, and essentially, it's able to measure kind of where you're at financially on one page, which is
On one
awesome.
page. Yeah, I mean, amazing and nowhere else.
Mm.
Is there a service that provides it all on one page? And what I found, at least with my clients and with myself, is when everything is scattered, we really only have 7 spots in our brain where we can hold information. And a lot of people, to protect themselves, spread that out over too many, and then they can't focus and they lose focus on those peripheral ones. Well, this Wealth View 360 puts it all in one page so you actually can see everything. When you can see everything, then you can start to make different plans for yourself and for your future. Maybe you can actually do something sooner than you thought you may
Mm.
be able to, whether it's start a business or go on a trip with your family, whatever that might be. But when everything is visible in one area, then you're not constantly having to focus in all these other areas and you can actually focus on what is most important,
Yeah.
and that is the family and continuing to grow that family or your business or whatever that might be.
And a big piece of Wealth 360 is the cash flow section, right? So there's a section that measures your cash flow, right? So it's the money that is coming in and out of your financial life, and cash flow is measuring the net positive. It'll actually measure the net negative too, right? But obviously, you want to get into the net positive.
Sure.
And so that's kind of the one way in which we've kind of provided tools for that we're providing tools for clients that really help people live a more meaningful life. Because obviously, it's a saying in business, which is you what you measure, you get to manage, and what you can manage, you improve. So this is to help give you that outcome. And then the app I was referring to that we partnered with is called Currents. That's also available for no cost to Paradigm Life clients. So if you go into your portal account, If you have not signed up for Currents, there will be instructions in the My Team section that you can access. So those are resources again to help live a more meaningful life, right? It's not to be cheap and to save and to scrimp, right? It's essentially to optimize your financial life so you can live in the most meaningful way. And if that means buying sea monkeys, right, or continue to buy, the novelties that that you enjoy, that you like, you're able to do it in the most responsible way possible.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more in really simplifying. I think today in today's world, there's so many ways that we can that steal our focus. And I mean, there's just endless things. And when we can simplify even just one small area, it feels like a small area of our life. It's amazing how much more bandwidth we have to focus on other things. And I really do believe that that is such a value add and takes almost no time at all to set it up in the beginning and to continue to manage that. And what's also neat is that you can see the progress that's made. The other issue with your things being scattered all over the place, you're not seeing the progress that you're making. And when we don't see the progress that we're making, it can feel disheartening and we don't really know where else to go.
Okay, Jenny, thank you for being here. It's been an awesome conversation.
Yeah. Thank you, Pat. This is
Uh,
awesome.
there's something we want to end with, and it's actually a video. We have a playlist on our YouTube channel. It's financial humor, and we actually found a clip of humor for sea monkeys, but I don't think that would be appropriate to put on the on the Paradigm Life channel. But there is one that talks about credit card debt, talks about spending and overspending, and it's a Saturday Night Live skit. So we're gonna play it for you now, and you can also go to the show notes of the podcast and find the link to actually watch the video itself. But that's it for today. And now to our concluding video slash audio.